instead of saying, and I learned this from improv, instead of saying like no, but you're supposed to say yes and. Say the statement again about perspective.
Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about, okay, you're right, you're wrong type of thing. It's just perspective.
And then what's something new that you learned this year? Like this pandemic's ending and stuff? Like media-wise, but I know it's still out there. What's something that the pandemic taught you about yourself? There's some fun shit.
Ain't nothing fun about that.
Hey man, look, okay, all right. There's some hard shit, man. I'm sorry, man. I've always been a person, I guess, in recent years where, like, you know, when the hard stuff happens, it teaches me a lesson in life. I'm not saying like, okay, like, there's some experimenting stuff, like, you know, this podcast game,
Yeah.
which has been great. You know, you got more shows out than I do, and like half the time, I'm proud of you for doing.
Yeah, because that's because you just keep slacking, man.
It's not because I'm keep slacking. It's just you have a much better way of being able to articulate yourself, I'd like to say, from my perspective at least. For me, I've always been misunderstood. That's always been.
So you think I'm not misunderstood?
No, I don't think that you're not misunderstood.
Oh, I am a lot.
Well, at least the audience that I perceive it, I understand you.
Yeah.
But I feel the majority don't understand me. So I kind of am maybe taking a bit more time and being a bit more calculated than what I'm trying to say.
But then are you being you?
A little bit yes and a little bit no, because I'm an overthinker. So.
Oh, I overthink. It looks like I don't. Trust me.
Oh yeah, no, I know you're careful with your words all the time. Don't worry.
Yeah, it just depends on like who I'm speaking to, what I'm talking about, whatever. Certain things, you know, you always gotta be conscious of certain things.
Yeah.
Certain things you say to certain people, or whatever. I mean, it's not like you're trying to be malicious, but at the time that we're living in, some people might be a little bit more sensitive to everything. Yeah. So it's like, and sometimes it's not even like, not only are you not trying to be malicious, but you're not. It's not like you're not telling the truth either.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it affects them and whatever. And like, for instance, like the whole thing with like Dave Chappelle, it's like, it's funny when I made joke of everyone, but when I talk about you, it's not.
Well, of course.
But before you were laughing. So what changed?
The thing that changed is that you weren't the butt of the joke. A lot of the people, when they were young, you know, you didn't want to be the person that was associated with the word failure. That's it. Like, our whole culture is associated with failure, essentially.
Yeah.
You know, the people that break out are, you know, the celebrities that are artists, musical artists, you know, scientists, you know, athletes, and all these other different fields that some of us are like, whoa, we're one of those. Like, that's the reaction, because the narrative or the script that we've been fed is like, you know, you either fail or you're one of those things, versus just like, just being comfortable to allow to exist. That's why I don't like using the word failure anymore. I like using the word experiment.
Yeah.
Like when, for instance, like right now, as of recording, my soccer team's on like a bit of a slump. We can't figure ourselves out, at least my Thursday team. And one thing that I'm finding frustrating right now as the person is I'm trying to change my messaging whenever I'm trying to communicate to them. Because it's soccer. It's a simple sport, but it's difficult to play simple because you're playing with 6, 7, sometimes 12 different people that you don't even know. I wish I had this, and this is what I see, at least in you. Sometimes it looks like you don't care.
I usually don't.
And I'm jealous of that, because like I've tried to emulate that, and I've had the worst thing almost happen. I care twice as much. Yeah,
sometimes I care too much. Sometimes I don't care at all. It just depends on what it is. Because, like, for instance, like you say, sometimes it doesn't seem like I'm too... Like, I'm very much of a perfectionist. Like, literally. I would notice, because I notice very, very fine details in certain things. And sometimes people are like, I didn't even notice that. I didn't even hear that. But for me, it's like, I know a lot of people won't catch it.
Yeah.
But it bothers me to know, I see that, I hear that, and it's there, and I leave it. If I can do something to make it better, I will. But then, at some point, you got to realize certain things is out of your control.
Yeah.
So therefore, that's when you got to be like, all right, it is what it is, and you just do what you can. Because one of the most difficult thing about playing soccer is it's nice when you play with a bunch of people who you know, similar style or whatever. But when you're playing with a bunch of random people, well, not really random people, but people you don't really know, playing style and all that stuff. Now it's just like, well, you can't make them play how you want. You kind of have to adapt to them. So it's just like, well, just see where it goes. Yeah, totally understand. But like, I really want to play as much as I can. But sometimes the time and then work schedule, other stuff we got to do. It's just like, it's hard juggling a lot of stuff. So,
Yeah.
but you know what? That's just transferable to life, man. It's sometimes you just gotta, like, for instance, one of the podcasts I watched with, what's his name? Ocho Cinco.
Yeah.
And one of the things he say is, I played football not the way the NFL wanted me to play.
Mm-hmm.
I played the way I played as a kid. And that was just do my best and most importantly, have fun while playing it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was good at what I did. I didn't have to break myself down to fit into this type of thing. Like, I was a team player and all that stuff, but I still played like I played as a kid. And that's one of the reasons why I really love Ronaldinho. Still my favorite player ever.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't try to do anything that everybody else was doing. He just played the way he was as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
He's just having fun. He just loved the sport and he just do what he can do.
Do you think he would thrive in this era of football now, where it's like all like, I almost want to say like there's less creativity. It's kind of more robotic. A lot of people are trained in the sense of like knowing 2 or 3 moves and
you
have to kind of play in certain roles.
That's a good question. Yes and no, because since the pandemic, I haven't really watched much soccer. Kind of lost.
That's fair. No,
I've
dropped
lost like a lot of interest in it, especially when there wasn't the fans and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not the same. It's different. And then on top of that too, it's just, again, realize how much the pandemic affected everything, especially finances.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of people lost their jobs. And a lot of people realize, wait, one job is next to none when it comes to income.
Mm-hmm.
Because something like that happened, and then now you're just on the sideline. You're looking to go back in the game. Well, you're not in control of what's open, what's not. So that determines if you can make some money or not.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe people used to make overtime. There's none now. Stuff like that. So
Yeah.
and then of course,
Really good
information, because everyone is home. Information, we're living in the information age where, especially when it comes to podcasts, that's why podcasts blew up in the last 2 years.
Oh yeah, I know that.
Everyone is home, and now you can actually see. Wait a minute, you mean I can start a vending machine business? Earn your leisure. That's one of the things I always try to tell everyone about, because on there, anything to do with business, investing type of stuff, they have someone or a bunch of people who are physically and literally in that business that's successful and have helped others.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to start a vending machine? Cool. You want to do a real estate, crypto, NFTs? Doesn't matter what it is.
Mm-hmm.
They have a bunch of people that come on there, and not people who are telling you this, but it's not actually real. It's people who you actually know about. Shaq, Mark Cuban,
Yeah.
MG, the mortgage guy,
All
like
those
stuff
guys
like that.
Yeah, you don't need to educate me, man. I was on the podcast.
There you go.
Like a decade
So-
ago, bro. It's
So
just,
that's the thing.
I haven't applied it. That's the problem.
So since all that stuff became even a little bit more available,
Yeah.
now it's just like, well, I could spend a lot of my time doing stuff I love doing and cool and all that stuff. Or I can also spend some time educating myself about stuff that I didn't have the opportunity for before.
Oh yeah.
We went to school.
Oh no.
They
Like.
didn't teach us about stocks.
Oh no, they didn't teach us at all.
They didn't teach about money,
Mm-hmm.
taxes,
Mm-hmm.
none of that stuff. But it's why not?
They taught us portions of it, but what I think is like a person like you, for instance, like school is just basically trying to get you through the system to be cookie cutter, like the football player you just mentioned a couple minutes ago,
Mhm.
where like you have to be like this, and that's how I even look at soccer and a lot of different jobs now. It's like you have to be in this role.
Yeah.
Like even in my current role that I got recently, I'm different. I'd like to say. In the sense of like I have these ideas, I don't fit in this box,
Mhm.
and I don't intend to fit in this box either, because if I fit in this box, I'm not myself at this job.
Yes.
It's like I want to be myself at this job, which means I'm greater than the box. Because like I consider myself a searcher. Like I'll go find information. I like being the fly on the wall for conversations. I like to try new things.
Yeah.
Like be a photographer. Start a podcast. Yes, I did start a podcast. And actually, you know what the funny thing is? I actually did send you the first episode of my podcast being done. And now you did say, once you get your podcast done, I'd be on this. And look at, see,
See, it works out.
I know it works out,
You
man.
just gotta do it.
I know.
And that's part of the problem, even like as far as race goes.
Yeah.
It's like you can't be yourself, especially when you're a person of color. I'm sure everyone may struggle with this.
Yeah.
But when you're a person of color, and I don't like saying person of color because that just lumps in everyone's issue when we in fact have a unique
I agree.
Situation?
I know why we lump it. We lump it because we need it to be big enough. So that way
No, I don't think so.
No. I think for the public or whoever you want to call as the gatekeepers, it's just an imaginary term.
Mhm.
You need to make that voice loud enough for other people to say that. That's why, like, you need to create a big enough community that's recognizable for people to acknowledge it. That's why you see, like, almost like collaborations happening.
But everyone's suffering is
everyone's suffering is unique at the end of the day.
So you can't generalize it.
But you have to generalize it for it to get attention and then bring it back down to being specific.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either as well, but I'm just saying, like, that's what I've noticed of observing other people and, like, how to, like, gain a movement.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, like Black Lives Matter, for me, at least when it started, probably, you probably know better than this because you've done more research into it, but if I'm just generalizing I guess you probably say, like, the timeline, its original intention, which was just to, like, highlight what the issue was of, like, you know, Black Lives Do Matter, was pure and correct. But as it gained traction and then it gained sponsorships and everything else, the message got diluted. But it was able to reach a bigger audience.
Was it?
I think more people are aware of it now, and now they use the expression. But now, the actual people that do know the message, like the pure original message of what it is, I'm going to say it's their responsibility, but what those people are probably going to tell me is, like, it's not my responsibility to do this. It's their responsibility, the audience, people that are now aware of it, to go do the research and backtrack to what the original message was. Versus those people that are aware of the original message, educating now these new people, like, oh, Black Lives Matter. Well, this doesn't seem like it. What's the actual meaning of Black Lives Matter? Well, let me do my research and go do that. Like, people nowadays, and I was doing this with you downstairs, where there's levels of research right now.
Yeah.
Like, people on average, they'll go like maybe 2 or 3. So, you know, they find a Wikipedia, they find a YouTube or whatever, because everyone else has, like, the message is so diluted with the media now. Like, for me, like, I have like 27 podcasts that I listen to weekly. That's like my, like, echo chamber of education that brings in the different guests and different speakers. That's how I learn. And then I got my YouTube stuff, but you won't catch me watching CNN. You won't catch me watching, like, CBC. You won't catch me being influenced by those.
Yeah. You still got to see what they're saying, but you got to get from different places.
I agree.
A lot of people just get stuff from the news and they just live by that because they believe, well, if on the news, it must be true. End of the day, and I heard someone say this, life isn't about truths, and I think it was actually Carlos Miller. He would say, life isn't about who's right and who's wrong or whatever. It's all about perspective. And if you think about it, well, trying to explain to someone how difficult it is being a Black person, even in today's age, as much as things have gotten better, there's still issues. And then when people, you know, try to challenge what you're saying, sometimes you get upset because you think, no, he probably just racist, or he just... But sometimes he never had to deal with that. He never had to think about that. So for him, he doesn't see it that way. Yeah. Or maybe his friends and his family, he's never seen that from them. So to him, he's like, what is this guy talking about? That's not what happens. But he can't say that because he can only see stuff from his perspective. Whereas you're the one dealing with it. Like I explained to someone I had a little disagreement with a couple months ago. Until you have certain things done to you, you will never understand the problem of racism. And it's that simple, I think. No, that's my perspective. Because that's actually really good. When you walk down the street, no one really bothers you. No one looks at you a certain way. No one tries to start conversation with you in your neighborhood when you don't look like a familiar face. I'm pretty sure no one follows you around the store when you go in, you know? I'm pretty sure when you tell someone where you work or the type of job you have, they don't question how you got it. You know, I'm pretty sure no one comes up, really, you know, kind of talks about your physically rather than your brain. I'm sure you probably don't have that issue. No one's probably trying to touch your hair, like stupid little things like that. But trying to convey that message sometimes to some people, it's just difficult. So,
but some people are visual learners, or for instance, like factors, like the human brain does a really good job of protecting us in the sense of like traumas. So for instance, if this person went through our experience and for them that would have traumatized them, their brain wouldn't acknowledge it. They deny it. They go through those stages of, like, you know, until they arrive to acceptance, for instance, over that situation. The problem I may have with, well, I don't really even have a problem with that because, like, you conveyed it correctly. And, like, even the way how we've been trained, like, you said something that's just pure. I should just let it breathe. But because of how we've been conditioned as a culture, I am literally trying to almost, like, find an angle to say, like, hey, you know, I have to argue against you. Like, you're right, but, and we've had this discussion where it's like, you'll say the truth. Someone will say, like, I agree with you, but, and as I told you before, when someone says but or they say a transition word, it's disregarding whatever you just said.
Yeah.
And that's just so that way that they can interject their opinion into it.
Mm-hmm. Their
Versus
perspective.
which is versus just like allowing someone's perspective to be like, that's why I think like the key part of being like a good interviewer is instead of saying, and I learned this from improv, instead of saying like no, but you're supposed to say yes and. So say it again for me because like I'm all over the place with my scattered brain, but like say the statement again about perspective that you said, like the clear, concise quote. And let's see if I can do a yes.
Life isn't based on truths and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about, okay, you're right, you're wrong type of thing. It's just perspective. Like, for instance, another lyric I heard Black Thought said is,
Mm-hmm.
how can you can't gain perspective with the world in your hands. And if you think about it, well, if I was in control of everything, I had everything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to know what this guy is going through who didn't have anything to eat.
Yeah.
I don't know what this guy is from this neighborhood who put in a job application. They see where he's from. He gets thrown in the trash.
That's a very good image because that conveys what I was saying before about how you need a community. So the community is the world that you're holding in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
So it's big enough now that people can recognize that because they recognize the world. But the problem, what people don't do is that next step where they bring it back down to the specific point where it's one-on-one, like the individual person's perspective.
So you don't think part of grouping everything is just not doing anything?
I think grouping it is to reach a bigger audience. And then once it reaches that bigger audience, the individual in that audience needs to go to the individual that's in the group that's being highlighted to understand.
What if the whole thing isn't to get the bigger audience?
If it's not, then it's totally fine.
Because, I mean, if you think about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give you a little example. Tell me what you think.
Mm-hmm.
The George Floyd problem.
Mm-hmm.
It took me weeks to watch that video. Like, weeks. And then I finally saw a picture of it, and I could imagine what happened after that. After hearing what happened. And the first time I seen that video, like, I cried, like, because I could see people who look like me there. I could see me being there.
You see the relatability.
Exactly. Now, it doesn't matter what he did, didn't do, was on, wasn't. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
There's absolutely nothing about that justifies, makes it okay, make it normal, whatever. That should happen. That should have been the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for me, one time, I kind of try to put myself in different people's position. Like, for instance,
as you should sometimes.
I imagine myself. I wonder how the person who called the cops felt after that happened. They probably just wasn't trying to do anything malicious or had any issue with the guy, but saying, "Oh, maybe he's doing something wrong, so let me call the police to try and deal with this."
Oh.
And then that ends up happening, and now the world's on fire because you made that call.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm like, I wonder how that person feels as well.
Well, that person has to understand that every action has consequences. So if that person had taken no action and let him just do what he needed to, George, do whatever he had to do, that person didn't agree with that consequence happening. So they did take action. And then the funny thing is, this is the thing. Whenever you make a decision, there's going to be positives and there's going to be negatives. That's what everyone's always weighing up. That's why, like, whenever I look at you, for instance, whenever you speak, or our other mutual friend that's down in, I guess you'd say Newmarket area, you guys are both stoic people for me. And shout out to the ghost. He knows who he is. But you're stoic people in the sense of you analyze the situation, whether that's overthinking and such, and then you choose to say your words.
Yes.
But when you're analyzing, for instance, you're trying to weigh out the pros and the cons. Now, the fact that you're actually demonstrating empathy towards the person that made the call on George, I think is amazing because I don't think a lot of people have that capability to do so.
Most people don't even think about that. I did that, and this is what happened. Not only him and his family were affected, so many people, like the world.
Yeah.
And now it's just like, okay, so now next time you see something, what do you do? What do you not do?
You fall
Now-
back. So here's my answer.
Wait. Let me finish.
Okay. All right.
Now, where I was going with this is, knowing that, seeing that, whatever happened, eventually I saw the video.
Yeah.
But then, what matters more and is, okay, now everyone's seen it. Everyone know what happened.
Yeah. Everyone has the perspective.
Yes. If that video was on mute and there was no
Sounds.
sound, there was no article, nothing. If you just watched it and it was mute, perspective. For some reason, we have a different perspective. Black people have a different perspective of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Others have police have, and it's just like, I don't get it. That's one of the most confused time I've ever been. I mean, like, you see what happened.
Yeah.
Now, is that right? Absolutely not. Does he deserve to be punished? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a way for punishment? Is that justice?
Those are fair questions that follow.
Is that how you deal with him?
Mm-hmm.
The question, again, even that would be up to debate. So the fact that there are people who debated that was okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's the part that confused me. The fact that there are people who said, well, he was this, and yeah, well, he did that.
Well,
so what are you saying? Because I used some drugs, I deserve to die like that?
I don't think so. What I will say first, and I can't speak for other people, but what I'm empathizing with other people is that they hit a capacity. So I think some people are like a 1 liter jug, maybe 2 liter, and then there's 4 liters. And I'd like to say, usually being from a minority, you have a bigger capacity for trauma and drama, as we were discussing before, just because it's affected us. All we want at the end of the day is just to exist. Like the fact that we're doing this, just existing, having a conversation, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's great. Whatever happens now transpires. That's Pandora's box being open. So there's people in the comments saying like, oh, why do you guys talk about this? Why do you guys want that direction? I didn't like this. They're trying to change the narrative of what we were just trying to have a discussion, because the way how they're consuming us right now, from their perspective, we're right there. Like they're right where the camera's recording us right now. So they're consuming this information in real time. And this actually kind of goes back to your information era question. I think our skills have changed. I think now in this era, and this is something that I've felt I've always been good at, and when the world used to be less information oriented, like book smarts and everything else, that was awful. But now that it's critical thinking, it's about observing, seeing the patterns, and basically being able to decipher the information and make a decision. I think those types of skills are now more praised upon versus what the old generation was. I met a person that would pride themselves on being book smart a lot. And that was like their pride and glory for knowledge.
Yeah.
But their inability to be adaptable to what today's era is, where like if you provide new information that they haven't read up, they have a difficulty to do that. So instead of seeing it as an opportunity to grow and learn, and this is where I bring it back to the person's perspective, where they're like, oh, that should have happened to George and everything else, as some people may say. They basically are coming to the conclusion that like they see the list of 100 questions that follow after that they have to answer. And they realize that they have a choice right now, that if they say like, no, you know what, I'm just going to end it right here. It's less work, less energy, less bandwidth for me to just say it and just say that I accepted it, instead of doing what we deem the correct answer from our perspective, at least, which is doing the work, answering all those tough questions. Because by answering all those tough questions, it helps avoid the next time that situation does happen. Because then we have at least an answer to go off of. That's the thing. That's how I look at gatekeeping. Gatekeeping is more of someone giving you permission to then go do something afterwards, and then maybe go ask questions, or they prevent you from doing something. I may be losing a couple here when I'm saying that, but what I essentially mean is like, if you don't have like the first person do something and do something revolutionarily like different first, then that doesn't allow someone else to then ask the question, or gives them essentially permission. I guess the term would be co-signing. It gives that person permission.
But this is 2020, man.
Oh yeah.
Like,
it's been happening though. That's what a mentor is.
There you go.
A mentor is essentially a reference.
It's not that this is a one-off.
Okay,
this is the 5th time. It's been happening. We can go as far as back as Emmett Till.
Well, I know slavery, I know it seems like it happened 200 years ago, but the funny thing is it only happened several decades.
You know what? Let's just say we agreed.
Yeah.
Slavery happened a long time ago. Okay, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? 1865?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's when all this stuff. Okay, it's a very long time ago. All right, let's bring it up to the 70s.
Yeah.
When it comes to migration, England, all that stuff. I don't know if you've seen Small Axe.
No, I haven't seen Small Axe yet, man.
That's a great 6-part documentary of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Migration, being treated a certain way, whatever. At a certain time. Whatever.
Check it out.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go to the States. Let's talk about the Detroit riots.
Yeah.
Chicago. Emmett Till. All that stuff. Now, you look at Chicago, it's in a really bad state.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter who is responsible for it or not. Problem is, it's there. All right.
Yeah.
How do we fix it? What is the reason for it? Most crimes are proximity based.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost 100% 100%, I would say.
I'll say
Directly,
99.
directly related to finances, poverty.